How's it going, everyone? I'm going to talk about Affliction, why I play it over the other two Warlock specs, obviously, Demonology and Destruction. But the fact is, I find Demonology and Destruction to be a lot more compelling, a lot more engaging, and certainly a lot more interesting. So the question is, why do I play Affliction? I'm going to get to that in a few minutes. First, I got to put myself in some kind of useful position to do some damage against the Alliance, and damn, I just always miss that Path of Frost there. Anyway, oh, look at that. Zerker buff for me, yay! Pop down my portal. Now, the main reason why I often choose the portal is just simply, it also removes snares. So even if I am in a bind and I didn't get it down, I can just quickly cast the portal, and if they want to interrupt me, they can interrupt me, no big deal. But I can quickly cast a portal and then port to sit right in front of myself, right in the same spot, and it will remove snares. And that's one of the biggest problems with a lot of casters, particularly Warlocks, snare removals. But why am I playing Affliction over Demonology and Destruction when I find both Demonology and Destruction to be a lot more interesting, a lot more compelling, and a lot more engaging? First, Demonology. I really like some older versions of Demonology. Not to say that the newer version sucks. It doesn't suck. It's actually pretty good. But they took a lot of good things and they gave them to Demon Hunters, particularly Metamorphosis. And if you look back at older versions, particularly versions from MOP, where you had something like Chaos Wave, which did some very big damage and was instant cast when you were in Metamorphosis. And you also had Carrion Swarm, which did a little bit amount of the damage, but more importantly, it offered some great utility. Plus, you also had Demonic Leap, I believe it was called, but that ability where you could change your position, leap forward, which is a big reason why I'm playing a Goblin Warlock here, is to have that added mobility of the rocket jump that Goblins have. I find it extraordinarily useful, because if I play a Gnome, very useful having the Gnome racial, but you're not going to get that speed boost and you're not going to place distance between anybody. And if you play a Worgen, yeah, you'll get the speed boost, but chances are you're running around with a snare, so it's not that much of a speed boost. So that's why I'm going with a Goblin to change my position. So if you look back at some of the older forms of Demonology, I think the current form is a shadow of its former self, but it's still pretty good. It's still pretty intriguing. I think if you consider what they took away and where it is right now, it's a pretty compelling and intriguing spec, and I do like it a lot. The downside of Demonology is simply, like I said, it's a shadow of its former self. I've known better versions, so it's kind of difficult for me to play it in its current state. But also, it just takes a tremendous amount of time to ramp up damage with Demonology. Make no mistake, though, when you do ramp up that damage, you will get paid off on it very big. You can do some tremendous damage with Imp Implosion and the Artifact. Huge damage can come from Demonology, but it does take a long time to ramp up. But perhaps the biggest reason is the pets, or are the pets in general. Pets are running rampant in Legion. They started to do that in Warlords of Drain all the fun. In Legion, doesn't matter if you're a Hunter, a Warlock, an Unholy DK, a Frost Mage, pets are running around crazy. They got a mind of their own. I've literally had pets follow me and track me from Lumber Mill past the graveyard and stables. They hit a target and they do not come back. Now, yes, there are some macros that you can use. Matter of fact, if you tune into my Hunter guide or my Warlock guide, which will be coming out soon, you'll be able to see these two macros that I will show you, and they will help you manage your pets. But the big difference here, in PvP, you have so many things to manage. And when you're out there dragon slaying, you're delegating your healing to someone else the majority of the time. You're delegating your defenses to someone else the majority of the time. And your CC doesn't really come into play as much. But in PvP, all that comes into play, and then to add in micromanaging pets, that's a lot to do. That is really a lot to do, especially when you're running for your life half the time as a Warlock, because the fact is, if you get snared, it's very difficult and almost impossible to get out of. which moves me along to Destro Lux. I'm a big guy when it comes to animations and audibles or sound effects in the game, and I love the Chaos Bolt. It is my all-time favorite animation and sound in the game. So it would be very, very likely that I play a Destro Lux, but pretty much everything a Destro Lux brings to the table is big, big damage, but once again, very, very little mobility. Everything needs to be hard cast, and everyone knows the way you shut down a demo lock is to keep them from casting Chaos Bolt. You don't need to be 2400 rated in RBGs or Arena to know this. A lot of people know this. The word is out, folks. And yes, you have some ways that you can counter that, but the bottom line is if you're stunned, it doesn't matter. They won't silence you, but they can still stun you to stop you. They could still knock you back to stop you. And that's the whole point. Those kind of things will neutralize a Destruction Warlock enough to the point that you catch up with them and train them. I don't like those long hard casts. It is a hell of a lot of fun to play. If they let you cast, you will have a grand old time in any given battleground or even in arena. But the fact is, they're not going to let you cast, and they're going to focus you down as soon as you start to cast a Chaos Bolt. That's just the reality of the situation. But like I said, I love animations. I love the sound effects, and Chaos Bolt is my favorite sound effect. It makes sense that I play a Destro Lock. And this is a pretty good version of a Destro Lock. I kind of like Destro Locks a little bit better during MOP because you had Blood Horror, so if someone touched you, they just ran away, which is a bit overpowered. I don't think they completely needed to take that away. They could have reworked it, and also I didn't like the fact that we lost Fell Flame, which was a quick instant cast that gave you some mobility, did some small damage. I'm dead, oh my god. So you did some small damage, and you were also able to generate Burning Embers with it by smashing it, boom, 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 in other words, spamming it. But I look back at some of my old MOP videos of my Destro Warlock, and the kind of mobility that was afforded back then is tremendous, to the point that I have to say that they were a bit OP throughout MOP as a result of that mobility, but now that mobility has been cut down drastically. So what it is I like about Affliction, particularly a Goblin Affliction Warlock, because of the Goblin racials, you get a 1% haste and you get Rocket Jump, which is huge. Even though it's on a 90-second cooldown, it's very, very huge because you are snared most of the time. If you have a gnome, you can get out of those snares with the gnome racial, but you're not going to have the speed boost or the rocket jump to reposition yourself. If you're a Worgen, you do have that speed boost, but the problem is that it's not going to be that effective because chances are you're going to have a snare on you and you're not going to be able to place that distance. With rocket jump, you certainly can place distance. Matter of fact, you could, if you forget to put your portal down, you could put your portal down, rocket jump, they will come after you, and then you could portal back to your original position and remove the snares if they do throw a snare on you. There's a lot of fluidity that comes with playing Affliction as a Goblin, and I mean, it would be very interesting to see what a Troll could do with that racial and the extra haste, but I really like playing a Goblin Affliction lock particularly. And the fact is, with Affliction, all you have to do is get your dots on them. Now, you have 2 dots that are instant cast that are baseline, and 2 more that you can have that you could choose through talents. And then you, of course, have Unstable Affliction, which basically means if someone is going to dispel it, there's going to be a payback for it. Somebody's going to pay the price for dispelling it. So it's not completely useless. But the idea here is get your dots on the target and just try to live it. That's basically what it comes down to. And then to really expedite your damage, you want to pop your Drain Soul and have all the talents, both PvE and PvP, that are going to accelerate that damage. Matter of fact, there was Death's Embrace that used to be a PvP talent that was kind of thrown over to PvE because it was that good of a talent. And I almost think that that's a must. And a lot of people, the word isn't out that you have to interrupt an Affliction Warlock when he's casting Drain Soul, because it's doing two things. One, it's giving you health, and two, it's doing damage, and I will always sign up for that kind of duality. That makes a lot of sense in PvP, and it puts a lot of pressure on other teams, and like I said, I prefer the other specs, but I have to go with Affliction just simply because it's more effective, people. This is Luxeley saying, whatever it is by you, morning, afternoon, or night, make it epic.